I had an interesting experience a year or so after I left high school. And it was Christmas Eve, and for some reason, I did not have plans organized. So I was at home, and I tried to call my buddies, but they had programs lined up that did not include me. So because it was a festive occasion, and because I had no plans, I felt rather lonely. In fact, I felt so lonely that I drove to the airport in a mistaken belief that when I see a lot of people, maybe that will assuage my loneliness and inner longing. The truth be told is that actually seeing passengers coming and seeing them being reunited with friends and loved ones made me even more depressed. I have friends, but that didn't take away this sense of inner longing. And the fact that on festive occasions where I didn't have any programs lined up only made this sense of inner longing, this sense of inner vacuum more acute and more pressing. Now I believe that even Christians go through, or maybe even now, you're experiencing such times of emptiness and loneliness. So how do we cope? How do we cope with this sense of inner longing? We set goals, perhaps. At that time, I thought maybe if I had a girlfriend, I would be able to solve my longing. Some of you may believe that having lots of money would solve that inner vacuum in you, or maybe achievements. Still others may conclude that perhaps having fame, to be famous, would help solve that problem. Now, the desire for romantic love, the desire for money, for success, for fame, has one result. It produces a hope, I believe. It produces a mistaken belief that if we get that thing, if we get that relationship, then all my inner longing would be gone. Today we look at two characters, Jacob and Leah, and I believe that they will illustrate that this substitute, this goal, is based on a mistaken belief. Now, the big idea I have is that God has placed in our heart, and it's in this bulletin, He has placed in our heart a God-shaped home, which can only be filled by Him. Unfortunately, we look for substitutes, and these substitutes will disappoint. So let's look at Scripture now. I'm wondering whether John is around. Yes, John, would you come up and read from today's Scripture? Genesis 29, verses 15 and 35, through to 35.
I'll be reading from Genesis 29, 15 to 35. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Laban said, "It is not so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, "Because the Lord has looked upon my affliction. For now my husband will love me." She conceived again and bore a son, and said, "Because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also." And she called his name Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, "Now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne to him 3 sons. Therefore his name will be called Levi." And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased.
So the big idea I want to propose to you this morning is that God has placed in our hearts a God-shaped hole, which He alone can fill and fulfill. And the unfortunate thing is, for many of us, we sometimes seek substitute for them. I want to look at this text from 3 perspectives, or from 3 points. The first thing is to see that we have a problem with inner longing or inner loneliness. Now, let me give the context of today's passage, Genesis 29. Let me sketch the background. If you're familiar with the story, Jacob fled the mess that he left behind. He had cheated his elder brother of the blessing that he thought he was entitled to, and in fact, his father Isaac wanted to give. And Esau, his elder brother, swore revenge, and so he had to flee for his life. So everything fell apart, right? The plans all fell apart. Instead of having an inheritance, the family fortune, he was penniless. Instead of being the head of the clan, he was alone. Instead of having friends, we see that he was friendless. So how did Jacob deal with this sense of loneliness, despair, and failure in his life? And that's how we come to today's text. Now, in verse 15, we see that he was there and he stayed a month. That was in verse 14. And so Laban invited him to negotiate the wages, right? He doesn't want him to just stay there and work for nothing. So there was an invitation to bargain. So Jacob said, we read in verse 17 that Rachel was beautiful, and he said to him, to Laban, he said, "I will work 7 years for your daughter's hand." Now, how did Jacob do in his bargain? We know that Jacob was a very savvy person. In fact, he cheated his elder brother of the blessing. Remember the birthright, for a stew or lentil. He cheated his elder brother of his birthright. So Jacob is not a naive person. He said, "I will give 7 years of my life." Now, as you drill into the text, you know that this price of 7 years is actually astronomical. Right? Let me just give you an illustration. A couple of years ago, I bought a Honda Civic, right? I suppose $17,000 maybe, give and take. I'm not sure what's the value of it. It is like for me going to the Honda dealer and say, I will give you $50,000 for the Honda Civic. He was offering an astronomical price. Now, we know from the Bible, for example, in Deuteronomy chapter 22, in some cases, the bride price is about 40 shekels or 50 shekels. No matter how you value 50 shekels, it shows that the price that Jacob offered was just crazy. Then we read from the text that the 7 years was like a few days in Jacob's eyes. Then we read on in verse 21 that after 7 years is over, he went to Jacob and said, hey, I've done 7 years. Give me Rachel that I might lie with her. Now, do you notice that the text tells us that what Jacob said was rather crude or crass? I'm a father of an adult daughter. If a prospective suitor comes to me and say, hey, I want to marry your daughter because I want to have sex with her, I would kick him out of the house. That's what Jacob did. And then as you go on, we saw that Laban did a bait and switch. All right? I won't get into that details. And then he worked for another 7 years after he mistakenly took for Rachel, her elder sister. This is really one love-sick puppy. He was emotionally, sexually fixated with that woman. Now, let me frame all this in terms of the main idea that I proposed to you. I said that God has created in us a God-shaped hole. And so when we try to fill that hole, right, and the needs of this God-shaped hole, let me just briefly summarize this. We need to be loved, to feel that we are loved. We need to feel that we are valued. We need to be in community. Remember, the Bible says it's not good for men to be alone. We need to be in community. And we need to find meaning and purpose in life. That's what we are, how we are created. And so we create goals. We believe that the way we fill those needs maybe is romantic love. Maybe to achieve things in life. Some of you may think that the way to solve the problem is to have a wife, or if you are a female, to have a husband. And you know why? For many years, you notice in the bookshops you have all those romantic novels, right? Because for many of the girls, I'm not sure about the generation we are in now, it is you read those romantic novels because you want the Prince Charming to come and sweep you off your feet. Because you think that that person may save you from that inner vacuum, that need, the desire to be loved, to be valued. We sometimes call that desire for that person to save you a functional savior. Some people use the word idols. We all have idols. Idols, in and of itself, romantic love, achievements, money, possessions, they are all not in and of themselves bad. But when we believe that they are the magic bullet, the ultimate that will solve all our problems, then that is a problem. A functional savior doesn't need to be marriage. Some of us have the valid need to be a somebody, right? And maybe to be a somebody means that you do well in school. Nothing wrong with that. But if you believe that you need to do well in school because you want to beat everybody, and because if you can beat everybody somehow, that would make you feel less inferior, and you're wrong. I can still remember when I was in college, in my freshman year, I did pretty well in my faculty. I was hoping to be an accountant, but there's one guy who beat me. So I said to myself, I want to beat that person. Now, I was studying in Australia. In Australia, the university system is that you just do the core courses. You cannot pick and choose like in colleges now. So, you pick and you have to enroll for those core courses. I did. But I made sure I enroll for one extra course because I want to beat him in the core courses that I have to enroll in, but I have one extra so that I can feel that I am one up on him. Now in Australia, in those days, you don't do projects, you don't do stuff. It is one exam at the end of the year. That's how it works at that time. So about a month before the final exam, I was pretty stressed out. In fact, 2 weeks before the finals, I couldn't sleep the whole night. And I felt that I have palpitations in the heart. My normal heartbeat is about 80, 84. But that night, as I was feeling my pulse, it was 120, 130. The whole night, I thought I was going to die. And I freaked out. So next morning, I went to see the doctor, and he prescribed just one pill, a tranquilizer, and that knocked me out 24 hours. I was sleeping the whole day and the whole night, non-stop. But in between being awake and being drowsy, I came to the realization that I don't need to beat this person. I never did beat that person, right? But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. So, some applications before we came back to the text. We want to feel valued. We want to be somebody. Nobody wants to be a nobody. Sorry for that play of words. Now, don't get me wrong. Grades are good. The Proverbs tell us that we should not be slothful. But how do we know the difference between grades? It's good to have good grades. And grades as the ultimate, because grades get us to the top college, and then top college means good jobs and so on. How do we discern the difference? It is when every waking hour is spent on that one goal, that is to have top grades, extracurricular activities, that you do not have time to enjoy, to smell the roses, as the saying goes. And then if you don't get into that dream college, you have failed in life. Then grades have become your functional sake. I think that parents sometimes are also to be blamed. Back in the old days, when I was growing up, the family, at least my family, was a haven. A haven of this so-called heartless world. And there's a book that's written with that title. A sanctuary for this dog-eat-dog culture that we live in. But unfortunately, now the family has become the incubator, the nursery of this heartless world. Let me just give an example. I don't know whether you have heard this said to you by your parents, but sometimes I hear this. I hear parents say to their children, 没用的. Have you heard of that expression in Mandarin? 没用的, no use. You are no use. It's almost saying you are a loser. We all want to feel that we're doing something important. Perhaps it is to work in a big company, Fortune 500. For me, perhaps it is to be pastor, to be a pastor of a mega church? I have to check myself every time I go to pastor's conference. Because people say, oh, where are you from? You know what's the next question they ask? How many people come to the church? See, we all have idols, functional symbols that we need to remind ourselves. We want to feel important. There is a God-shaped hole that God has placed in our hearts. And the bottom line is we need to understand. We need to find out what are the forces that drives the motives that we have. This is the first step. The first step in dealing with the problems of functional saviors or idols. Let's move on. The second point I want to make is that the experience that Leah and Jacob, especially for Leah, shows something. It shows that even though they may have succeeded in their goal, or mistakenly, success doesn't give fulfillment. Success doesn't give fulfillment. Let me get back to the text. Now we read in verse 17 that Rachel was a knockout. Right? Now in verse 17, we read something very interesting. We read that Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was a knockout. Sorry, that's my paraphrase. Now if you sort of dig deeper, you'll find that this is really a comparison. And so scholars are sort of a bit confused. What do you mean by weak eyes? Because that comparison is not symmetrical, right? You would say, well, Rachel is a knockout, but Leah is not so attractive. That makes sense, right? So we don't know. All to say that Leah was not as attractive. That Leah was always, it seems, under the shadow of a more beautiful and pretty younger sisters. In a sense, both Leah and Jacob, they were losers. What do I mean by that? Jacob was never loved by his father. Remember the story? Right? His father, Isaac, preferred Esau. Leah always felt unwanted because she was not attractive as her younger sister. And to put it in the most crass and crude way, her father, Leah's father, had to unload her. To unload her so that she could be married. Now we know that Jacob believed that having Rachel as his wife would sort of fill his inner longing, the romantic love. Life is meaningful after all. I have a beautiful wife, I can face the harsh world. But what was Leah's functional statement? What did Leah feel or felt that would solve her problem? It was to have a husband. It was to have a husband and to have children. But how do I come to this conclusion? That success doesn't always bring happiness or fulfillment. How do I come to the conclusion that Leah felt unloved? That the solution to her problem was to have a husband and to have children. Look at the text. When God saw that Leah was unloved, but in comparison to Rachel, he sort of intervened, right? He allowed Leah to conceive, but God made Rachel barren for time being. So Leah conceived. What did she call her eldest son? She called him Reuben, which is a play of Hebrew word for the Lord has looked upon, and we read that in the text, He has looked upon my affliction For now, my husband will love me. What does that tell you? She was in love. She believed that having a child will make her husband love her. The second son comes along. What did she call him? Simeon. And what is the play of words? The Lord has heard that she was hated or not loved as much as her elder sister was. Then the third son came along. What did she call him? Levi. Which is a play of words that now Jacob will be attracted to her. See, don't you understand? From the cultural point of view, being married, having sons, is a definition of success. But if you read between the words, you will see that she was emotionally in hell. She was in hell. Success in terms of the goals we set before us doesn't always bring happiness. I come back to this idea of a God-shaped need. We need community, we need to feel loved, we need to feel valued, we need to feel affirmed, we need meaning and purpose in life. Jacob, it is if only I can marry this woman. Rachel was his functioning singer. For Leah, it was if only I have a husband who loves me and I have children. But success did not fill that inner vacuum. Let me give you one example. I'm sure there are many examples, but I know some of you play tennis, so let me just give you Boris Becker. You guys heard of Boris Becker? Oh, okay, so maybe it's you guys are too young for that. Boris Becker is world tennis is a famous person because he won the Wimbledon twice. In fact, on record, he is the youngest male man to win Wimbledon. I'm not sure whether that record has been broken. And here's what he has to say in one of his blogs. I had won Wimbledon twice before. Once as the youngest player, I was rich. I had all the material possessions I needed. It's the old song of movie stars and pop stars who commit suicide. They have everything, and yet they are so unhappy. I had no inner peace. I was a puppet on a string. That's what Boris Becker wrote. So what am I saying? Success does not always bring fulfillment. I think C.S. Lewis expresses this the best. Let me just quote, and I've written this in the handout that you have. Let me just read it out for you and so I'll bring it to your attention. C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity, in the essay on hope, says this: the longings which arise in us when we first fall in love. He mentioned other things, going on vacation and so on, but I just zero in on the word love. The longings which arise in us when we first fall in love are longings which no marriage can satisfy. Now, I'm not speaking of what would be ordinarily called unsuccessful marriages. I am speaking of the best possible ones. There was something we have grasped at in the first moment of longing, which just fades away in the reality. We thought we get it, we have it. The wife may be a good wife, but something has evaded us. success may not bring fulfillment. Our ultimate fulfillment has to be in Jesus Christ. That brings me to the third point. Let me come back to the text. So Leah had 3 sons, right? I'm focusing on Leah now. I skipped the very tempting discussion about how the cheater himself got cheated, but I'm focusing on Leah. So she bore him 3 sons. But she still had that inner longing. So, what happened? The text gives us a very interesting hint. We find that she had the 4th child, right? And her son was called Judah. Let me just read. And she conceived, again, verse 35, and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Now, the word Judah is a play of the word praise. Notice something that is not there. What wasn't there? What wasn't there was the rationale, right? Maybe now my husband will love me. Maybe this will be different. No, it just stops at, I will praise God. There's no mention of a need for more children or children that will solve a problem. There's no mention of the fact that she needed husband love. She, in a way, felt liberated. Why? I think the hint to that answer comes if we sort of open up the book of chapter 29 into the whole of Genesis. Who is Judah? And what is the book of Genesis primarily about? Well, if I can use a word to sort of summarize, it is about blessing. Remember Genesis chapter 12? The Lord called Abraham to leave his home, actually called his father, right, to leave his home. And finally, Abraham, to leave, to come to the promised land in Canaan. And I will bless you, and all the nations of the world will be blessed by you. And then as we read further on, we see that this idea of blessing sort of continuing to the fact that there will be a seed. There will be a line. This seed will go from Abraham, not to the eldest son, to Ishmael, but to Isaac. It will go not to the eldest son, Esau, but to go to the youngest son, Jacob. And then as you fast forward, you have David. And then you fast forward again, Jesus Christ. And where is this line coming from? It is not the son or sons of Rachel, but it is the son of Leah from Judah. The line where the Messiah will continue. You see, if you are a mother, and if your son becomes a Nobel laureate, if your son or daughter invented some cure that really, solves some of the world's problems like penicillin, if your son or your daughter, invented something that is of importance, you will be thrilled. If your son becomes the Messiah, you will feel like you are on top of the world. Listen. You see, somebody said God looks down at a girl nobody wanted. Her father had to unload her to Christ. God looked down on a girl who was unloved and unlovely and chose her to be the mother of Jesus Christ. Sometimes momentary suffering can become bearable if you know why you're suffering. We just had the Yaos gave birth to a daughter, right? I'm sure that, the mother Rita will say, I don't want to suffer, right? But the pain, will pass. and after that, there will be joy. Did Leah know that Judah would be of the line that Jesus comes from? Probably not. I believe that as she sought God earnestly, she was able to go through, process the pain of being unloved and unwanted. Yes, it's great to have a good marriage, but it is also okay if it is not that great. What about us? Maybe we're going through periods of longing, vacuum, to feel loved, to feel valued, to feel important, to feel you're successful. But if we come before Jesus Christ one day, and we find out that that suffering really had a purpose, then we can bear with it. And that's why we can praise Jesus, because we are living by faith, that we will know why. So, God has placed in us a God-shaped heart, even like this. We believe that, we can seek substitutes. These substitutes are not in and of themselves bad. They're not evil. The trouble is that we take that to be the be-all and end-all, the ultimate that will solve all our problems. That's when idolatry comes in. Somebody has said that our heart is an idol factory. We create idols, one idol after another. So, what are the applications? The text sort of very, very sort of cryptically leaves us sort of midway, or at least the text I chose. Let me just give you a few applications to help us deal or cope or understand and root out some of this idolatry that we have in us. First of all, there will be ups and downs. Don't despair. Now, the story of Rachel and Leah does not end in chapter 29. I wish I could say Leah, well, she was transformed totally and she didn't deal with the problems. No, when you come to chapter 30, it's like the flesh comes back. There was jealousy with her sister, there was problems, sibling rivalry, and so on. So it's like you make 3 steps forward, and there's a book written with the title, and you take 2 steps back. Life is a journey of transformation, of growth, of change. You experience God's grace, but you will also experience moments of failure. Second, don't run away from the pain. Embrace the pain. Whenever you experience that pain, the loneliness, the vacuum, it is God's signal to you that something is not right. You want to seek Him. You want to ask how you can deal with it. Sometimes the wrong thing to do is to blame others. You feel that you have become a victim. That's not right. My experience of this palpitation of the heart forced me to realize that, what was driving my need? It was to feel that I can beat everybody else. I had to process it. To know that to be successful doesn't mean that you have to be ahead of everybody else. I had to bring that to God. I had to embrace that pain that I have. Thirdly, it is not all about you. It's not all about you. We all have inner longings. So the question maybe is to ask, why is it that we have this? What is God trying to do in putting something in our heart that we cannot solve, right? We cannot seek substitute. I think C.S. Lewis again puts it very, very right. And again, it is in your sermon outline. And it's taken from the same book, New Christianity, Hope. He says, if I find in myself a desire, which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. So what you do? You embrace the love. You give it to God. You be willing to sacrifice that part of your heart to God, acknowledging it's not about you, it's not about how you feel, but acknowledging it is about being in partnership with God, focusing on His kingdom, and allow God, because you are focused on Him, to draw you into His kingdom, to draw you into His community, and so you don't feel that lonely. It's not about you. It's about God. And experiencing that sense of participation and community will give you a foretaste of what you need, which God ultimately will supply. Fourth, practice spiritual discipline. One of the idols we have is money, possessions. Now, it's easy to say, okay, money is idolatry, having a lot of possession is idolatry. But I think for this point, I think Tim Keller really wrote something that's very, very profound to me. And I want to sort of bring it to your attention. You see, this is the subtlety of idolatry. Tim Keller talks about surface idols. In other words, the desire for more money, the desire for more possession, more stuff, right? It's a surface thing. But there's also a deeper thing. The deeper thing is that, you want money, not because you want more stuff, but you want money because it gives you that sense of security and control. I resonate with that. I don't spend a lot of money. The reason why I may not want to spend money is because I want more money, not because I want to spend, but it gives me the sense of security. And a way to deal with that is to practice the discipline of giving. You give. You trust that the Lord will supply, and you trust that God will make you feel you are blessed. Fifth, seek a mentor, spiritual director. We go through life with a measure of bitterness, because things have not turned out right. We go through life with pain, with resentment, with jealousy. And you know what? You're not the only one who experiences all these things. People have experienced that before. People have processed that. People have dealt with that. People have experienced God's grace. Find out from them how they dealt with it, rather than go through this alone. Finally, be patient. Life is a process where there will be ups and downs, like the first point. It is not over until you come face to face with Jesus. Transformation is a lifelong process of rooting out the things that take away our happiness, that take away our fulfillment, that take away the things that we think will fill that hole in our heart. Are you willing to do that? Let's pray. Father, we come before you this morning. We thank you for the experiences of Jacob, of Leah. Even though it is so long ago, yet the experiences are so relevant because they are experiences of the heart. And we pray, Lord, that you will continue to strengthen us, to teach us, and to encourage us to go on to change as we experience your grace until we see you face to face. We thank you in Jesus' name.